This is the Daily Tech News for Wednesday, April 9th, 2025. We tell you what you need to know, follow up on context, and wow, really do try to help each other understand, especially right now.
Today, yes, there are more tariff updates, Google Cloud next, and Dr. Niki updates us on the latest changes affecting science in the U.S.
I'm still Tom Merritt.
I'm Jenn Cutter.
Let's start with what you need to know with the big story. Lots of news coming out of Google Cloud next. Google's 7th generation Tensor processing unit. That's the same Tensor that's the T in ChatGPT, by the way, is called Ironwood. It is optimized for inference. That means that it's the execution of the LLMs, not the training, although it could do training. It's optimized for inference. Has a peak power of 4,614 T-flops for those who track that number. Has a specialized sparse core, which is good for algorithms that make recommendations. Also minimizes latency. That lowers the power requirements, so it's going to use less power. It's meant for the data center, comes in a 256 chip cluster or a 9,216 chip cluster. You're not buying this for your home use. Google's TPU competes with similar offerings from NVIDIA, Amazon, and Microsoft. Of course, Amazon's chips pretty much just available through AWS, Microsoft's through Azure, and Google wants these to be available through Google Cloud. So it's a way of saying, hey, if you come use Google Cloud, you get this hot new TPU that's good for inferencing and saves power, et cetera, et cetera.
Google Workspace is getting more agents called Workspace Flows. These can automate tasks like updating spreadsheets and finding information in documents. Flows can work with Google's customized chatbots called Gems, and of course, integrate with Google Drive. Google says it's working to connect with third-party tools as well. Google Docs will soon get Notebook LM's audio overviews, the thing that makes podcasts out of your docs. It will also provide tools to help you refine your writing and make arguments stronger. There is also Help Me Analyze for Google Sheets and Take Notes for Me in Google Meet. Google Chat users will be able to add Gemini to chats, and customers will be able to restrict which regions can store their data in order to comply with regional rules like the EU's GDPR. Gemini Code Assist is also getting agents in preview. It can do things like create code based on specs in a Google Doc, transform code from one language to another, generate work plans, and more. Code Assist is now also available in Android Studio.
Slowly, which is weird to think of Google acting slowly, but it's so big it acts slowly now. It is taking advantage of its Gemini stuff and putting it in Workspace. So I think these are nice offerings that they're doing. Google is releasing Gemini 2.5 Flash in Vertex AI. It lets developers adjust speed, accuracy, and most importantly, I think, cost to your specific needs. 2.5 Flash is a reasoning model, so it's similar to DeepSeek R1 or OpenAI O3 Mini. These are small models, and Google says its version should be good for customer service, document parsing, anything where efficiency at scale is the key. Google said Gemini 2.5 Flash will come to on-premises environments as well, so not just available through Google Cloud, starting in Q3.
Reddit Answers is integrating Gemini. The beta feature lets Reddit users ask questions and receive curated summaries of comments and posts. Reddit Answers is currently available in English, on the web, and iOS devices in the US.
Yeah, what's interesting about this is meant to keep people from using search to find things on Reddit. So Google is saying, well, we'll get the money by contracting with you to use Gemini to do the thing that stops you from using Google search. So I guess that's a good strategy for Google. Google Unified Security uses its Gemini algorithms with open source intel from the security community to bring together threat intelligence, security operations, cloud security, Chrome enterprise browsing, and expertise from Mandiant all into one tool. It can work across all potential attack areas and try to give a heads up on potential threats. It's available right now for enterprise customers.
Google and Samsung announced they are launching Ballie, the robot Samsung showed off at CES first in 2020. Ballie rolls around your house on wheels and uses Samsung SmartThings to control home appliances, manage calendars, and make phone calls, among other capabilities. If you recall, one of its demos showed it playing video through a built-in projector. It will use Google's Gemini to process your requests and responses and interpret visual data. It uses Samsung's own models for personal data and weather. It will ship sometime this year.
Yeah, we don't know the price yet. as far
No.
as I could tell anyway. So I got kind of excited, like, oh, Bali's real. And it's like, Bali's slightly more real, but we still don't have an actual ship date or anything. But yeah, getting closer to real.
I'm hoping, like, everyone wants a little BB-8 in their house, and the video projector looks stronger now than it did in the early demos. So hopefully it will be more visible in daylight.
Yeah, that's actually all for Google Cloud Next, but one Google demo came at TED in Vancouver. Android XR head Shahram Izzati and a colleague showed off a rather normal looking set of glasses. So these are mixed reality glasses, but they're the kind like the Amazon or the Meta ones that look fairly normal on your face, doing live translation between Farsi and English and scanning a book. The glasses use a connected phone for the processing, and they say can access all your phone apps, although I don't know what use all apps would be with glasses that just have audio, but there you go. Izzati also showed a headset developed with Samsung for immersive mixed reality. This is closer to the Apple Vision Pro, and the demo for that showed multiple windows, an immersive view of Cape Town, South Africa, a 360-degree snowboarding video. This is the same headset Samsung briefly showed at Unpacked in January, so we're just getting a second look at it.
This is my favorite use for this kind of tech is the live translations, like the way that will open up things, assuming, because Google Translate's been a little off and on lately. So if they get this right, I think this is huge for global communication.
Yeah, the ones I tried at CES were impressive in capability, but I wasn't sure how great they would be in real-time use because both people had to have them, right?
Oh, okay.
So, think about it like, oh, I can do live translation, but can the other person do live translation? So you might still be pulling out your phone for a while until this becomes normal. And then are people using the same glasses and all of that sort of thing? But yeah, we're getting closer and closer. I think it's pretty cool.
DTNS is made possible by you, the listener. Thanks to Justin Zellers, Carmine Bailey, Chris Benito. And welcome to our new patron, Max.
Yay, Max! Woo! Welcome, Max. Well, there is still more we need to know today, so let's get right to the briefs.
Niki reports that Nintendo will wait to assess before deciding on the release of the Nintendo Switch 2 in China. This is not related to tariffs, but instead over concern about China's restriction on video game sales. Not all international titles may be sold in China without modification to localize them for the Chinese market. Nintendo currently partners with Tencent on the original Switch in China, but has been winding down its eShop for the Switch, which stopped selling games on March 31st. Meanwhile, in Nintendo news related to tariffs, research firm DFC Intelligence says it does not expect a price rise in the Switch, expecting that Nintendo will offer fewer discounts and bundles to make up the difference. Nintendo America President Doug Bowser told CNBC on Monday that many Switch 2 models had already been shipped to the U.S. ahead of the imposition of tariffs. Nintendo builds the Switch 2 in Vietnam, which is currently under a 46% tariff. Nintendo does not currently have pre-order dates for the U.S. and Canada as it assesses options related to the tariffs.
Yeah, another thing DFC said was that they might adapt by reducing the number of discounts they offer. So that makes a lot of sense to me, where they priced in some of the tariff with the $450 price, but there were also plenty of other reasons for that price to be up that were unrelated to tariffs. And then they have the flexibility that I think people forget about, which is there's a lot of discounts out there. There's a lot of bundles out there. They can raise the price of a bundle without raising the base price of the Switch 2 itself. And I think that gives them some flexibility to deal with all this uncertainty.
Yeah, like it's a long-standing rumor that like Nintendo has never lost money selling a console, and that wasn't quite true back in the Wii U days. What happens in the future? Because like first-party Nintendo titles barely go on sale. Like if you have to wait for Mario Day, which is March 10th, for like some discount on the first-party stuff, and third-party games tend to discount a bit more. But now we have the game keys as well as the digital downloads, and hopefully more physical carts in our future. So there is wiggle room on those.
Yeah, there's a lot more going on behind this delay of the pre-order situation than just tariffs. It's not just the price of the Switch 2. It's channel support. It's how many Switch 2s do we have in the country? And therefore, how long do we have to go before we have to adapt if the tariffs stay in place? And then what happens if they go away for Vietnam specifically? There's a lot of uncertainty that Nintendo's tried to prepare its best for, just like all the other companies are trying to do. In fact, there's a bit more tariff-related news for other companies. Razer pulled its gaming laptops and the Razer adjustable laptop stand off the U.S. version of its online store. The Blade 16 just launched in March, so it was there. Now it's not. Component shortages could be part of this. The NVIDIA RTX 5000 GPUs are hard to get, but Razer makes most of its products in China, so that's probably what is behind this. And the products are all still available to order from other stores like the UK store. So it seems like this is mostly tariff related. Apple, like many companies, has reportedly stockpiled iPhone, Mac, and other inventory in the US ahead of tariffs to avoid price increases. And Nikkei Asia reports that that's not just Apple. Dell, Microsoft, and Lenovo also shipped as many units as possible into the US ahead of the April 9th tariffs. Boom for warehouses, I guess, if you think of it that way. Reports that Apple supplier Luxshare is examining the option of moving some production to the U.S. It assembles some iPhone models and produces AirPods and Apple Watch for Apple. Luxshare co-founder Wang Lei-chun told analysts Wednesday that tariffs will, quote, have little impact on profits and revenue for Luxshare as the company exports, quote, only a small amount of finished products to the United States. She also said, and this is what got a lot of headlines, we do not rule out having some products being localized to meet the needs of the U.S. market, but that would only apply to making, quote, products made with a significant degree of automation. So looking at maybe making some of the products in the U.S., but only if they can automate the process. So not really creating a whole lot of jobs there. Bloomberg reports that Amazon canceled orders for multiple products made in China to reduce its exposure to the tariffs. Among the products were beach chairs, scooters, and air conditioners. Those were mentioned specifically by Bloomberg. And once again, the U.S. says it will impose tariffs on small parcels worth less than $800 coming from China. This is the $800 exemption that lets you buy cheap stuff from places like Temu and Shein. The rate will be 90% of their value, and starting May 2nd, items entering by postal mail. So not just stuff that Temu and Shein are shipping to warehouses or reshippers, but the stuff you order directly from any company in China, will be assessed a $75 fee. So if you buy a $2 spoon, you're paying $77. That was going to be a $25 fee, but they raised it to $75. And then after June 1st, that goes up to $150 instead of $50.
Yeah, all my gaming friends have been very annoyed by the news of this past week and are stocking up on everything, keyboards as well, because most of that is manufactured in China. People have pulled the trigger on multi-$100 keyboards that they were thinking about just to get stuff out of the way, not knowing what future changes hold.
Yeah, there's going to be a big dip in electronic sales in the United States and possibly elsewhere, like Canada and other places, because a lot of people were buying things ahead of time to avoid tariffs, whether they came or not. People were like, you know what, just in case, I'm going to buy it now. So PC sales have risen in the U.S. Over the past quarter because of that. And it looks like we're going to see a drop in those kinds of activities. There's a drop in travel bookings already. A lot of impacts of this, not only in the tech world, but elsewhere.
An Instagram employee told The Information that Instagram is working on an iPad-specific app. Instagram head Adam Mosseri said in 2022 that the company hadn't done so because there were not enough iPad Instagram users. Instagram has also been previewing an Edits app for video.
This seems like wow, TikTok is really big. maybe we should encourage tablet users somehow.
Yeah, iPad users have definitely been annoyed over the years, neglected, I would say, because trying to look at Instagram on iPad is not a great experience.
Yeah, if you're wondering, if you don't use an iPad, you just use the iOS app, which means you double it So it has a little bit lower resolution, which is not great for a photo-oriented, video-oriented platform. So it's good to see them doing a different approach to this, possibly. Also a different approach, Microsoft has been pulling back its plans to build new data centers, telling the Columbus, Ohio Dispatch that it is no longer moving forward with 3 data center campuses in the area. Now, Microsoft has been pulling back on data center plans across Asia and Europe. My guess is a lot of this has to do with overestimation of data center demand, not because of a lack of demand for AI, but realizing that these models can be more efficient than they thought. Microsoft says it's going to hold on to the land it bought for the data centers and develop at an unspecified future time. So that implies that they think that they will have a use for it eventually. They just don't need it in the immediate future. Or they're just trying to save some money right now, which could also be part of this. Meanwhile, they might want to consider selling it to Amazon. Amazon apparently is planning to spend $15 billion this year on 80 new logistics facilities in the U.S. as they start to ramp up their spending again after slowing down quite a bit after 2020.
CNET reports that the $400 Moto G stylus is getting super fast 68-watt wired charging. This would put it on par with charging speeds from more expensive phones from OnePlus, Asus, and Red Magic.
China's Commerce Ministry said Wednesday that any deal to sell TikTok would have to comply with Chinese law. Specifically, the statement was, the specific business arrangements must comply with Chinese law, including the export of technology, which must be approved by the Chinese government. Now, noting the export of technology indicates that maybe that's where the discussions are right now, is about the algorithm and maybe having someone administer the algorithm in the US, which was off the table for the longest time. But this is definitely a softening of China's most recent stance that there could be no deal because of the US tariffs.
Yeah, this dance continues. I think a lot of people thought it would be resolved earlier this year.
All right. This is happening as we are recording, and I'm going to do my best to adapt to this so that we don't have to re-record the entire episode. But the President of the United States has announced a 90-day pause on higher tariffs for dozens of countries, but increased the levy on China from 104% to 125%. So that literally, like, it was breaking news on my watch as we were recording this right now. So that's going to change all of those calculations that we were talking about earlier as well, because it's not a rescinding of the tariffs. It's a pause. It's a 90-day pause for dozens of countries. So not even all of the countries. So the uncertainty continues and the merry-go-round continues. And we really won't know the fallout or how companies are going to be able to deal with this or how much stuff is going to cost you until this entire circus plays out.
And Foxconn is seeking partnerships with Japanese automakers on electric vehicles to compete better with Chinese makers.
Yeah, because the real innovation in electric vehicles right now is happening in Asia. Foxconn wants to get in on this. China is a tough competitor. Going to Japanese automakers right now is a better bet because you don't have to deal with the tariff uncertainty between Japan and Taiwan, and you can sell in China. You can sell in Europe. So it makes sense that Foxconn would be talking to all kinds of Japanese automakers.
Yeah, because also in semi-related tariff news, Canada has a 100% on Chinese EVs coming into the country, which continues to hold even through all of this uncertainty. So the fact that China, Japan, and South Korea are talking more makes a lot of sense.
All right, folks, those are the essentials for today. Let's dive a little deeper into some ongoing stories and follow up.
The U.S. government has been making a lot of changes to how it supports science in the U.S. So it's time to check in with Dr. Niki to see what has changed in the last month.
Hi, Dr. Niki. How the heck are you keeping up on all of this?
Well, I treat this as a kind of therapy, Tom. Once a month, I do a deep dive, and then for the rest of the month, I just plug my ears and scream. So it's been working well.
When last we checked, we had the news that came up to March 6th. Let's go in chronological order. What has happened since then?
Yeah, I picked out some interesting topics and try not to overlap too much. Obviously, there's a lot more going on. But let's start with the USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture. They had food safety panels, but they have been disbanded. So these panels are made up of expert scientists, and they provide advice on things like meat inspections and microbial threats to the food source. And until they were stopped at the beginning of March, they were working on things like reducing bacterial contamination that had led to infants being killed by baby formula in 2022, also improving meat inspections using AI, and reducing harmful microbes in the food with genomics. However, they're finished now.
Yeah, so not a change in the law of what's legal or what's not, but a change in a resource.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
This advice does not exist anymore.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah. Next one, funding. We are always going to talk about funding. Sorry if you're tired of it. So big in the university world. I don't know if the laymen know about this, but Columbia University has been going through a lot. So they were defunded in about mid-March. The current administration announced an immediate termination of over $400 million in federal funding to Columbia University. This funding is usually congressionally mandated, so that's not technically allowed, but it was done anyway. Allegedly, they did this in response to pro-Palestine protests held on campus. Later in the month, this led to a lot of different changes. So the administration had 9 demands in exchange to giving this money back, and the university complied with most of them, including their interim president stepping down, also hiring special officers with the ability to remove individuals from campus, as well as adopting a new definition of anti-Semitism and banning masks and face coverings during protests. They also issued some suspensions for students and degree revocations, among other things. And the faculty is currently suing the administration, and this is ongoing. This is only one of the universities. There's a lot other. There's Harvard and Princeton are also going through different things, but this is kind of a flagship.
So Columbia has complied with several of the requests, but the administration has not yet restored the funding.
No, they have not gotten the funding back as of yet, and it's mostly NIH funding, but that makes sense for a kind of more biomedical focused university.
Our next one sounds like something came back.
Yeah, sort of good news. So last month we talked about how the NIH has council meetings. Specifically, this is where researchers review new grants to see if they want to award them or not. This is important because we want more and more grants to research more and more different kinds of things. So that was frozen in January, and now in about the end of March, that freeze has been lifted. So these meetings are starting to take place again slowly. However, we are now behind on the amount of funding awarded by about $1.5 billion compared to last year. So we're not quite where we would like to be, but it is some good news.
Yeah, but now they have a chance to at least try to catch up. But that's not the only thing that's happening at the NIH.
Yeah. On the other hand of the NIH, there is a new director, and this is combined with over 1,300 NIH employees fired, several institute leaders removed, but potentially may get put back into place because them being removed may have been a coding error. Unsure about that. Mm-hmm. There's also a new mandate for government efficiency to eliminate $2.6 billion in contracts at NIH. Contracts support the NIH workforce, things like IT folk who work there, and lots of activities like clinical trials or vaccine development. So that is supposed to be potentially getting cut.
That's direct funding of science in those cases where they're doing contracting for vaccine development. That's the government saying, like let's make sure this happens.
Yeah, and then like I said, IT for NIH. Pretty important.
For NIH itself is a contractor situation.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And then our last couple here are about students and policies around students, it sounds like.
Yeah, and I think this still really affects science because so much of our work is done by students. So when they get affected, we lose workforce and we lose science. So there's a really big international college student crackdown happening as of early April. Some international students in U.S. colleges are having their visas revoked. The number is something around the hundreds, but it's not quite confirmed. Sometimes reasons are given like pro-Palestine activism, sometimes not. For example, locally at my university, the University of Alabama, we've had an engineering graduate student who was detained by ICE allegedly because of a traffic violation and not yet been returned. So we think about up to 300 students have had their visas revoked and are facing deportation from dozens of universities. The US is host to over 1 million international students. And like I said, they're a huge part of our workforce. So we are pretty worried. And I'm also personally, for my students, pretty worried about this. So I wanted to make sure we mentioned it.
Gotcha. And then what's our last piece?
Last piece is brand new, came out this morning or earlier this week. So it's a little bit detailed, but I want to make sure that we talk about it. So the National Science Foundation has a graduate fellowship program called the GRFP. And this program supports really exceptional graduate students and basically allows some of them to do a PhD or a master's degree. It supports them for 3 years to do a really impressive project. It's pretty competitive. And this year, 1,000 of them were funded. So congratulations to those students. But that is even less than half of what was funded last year. And there were also cuts the year prior. And like I said, this is really like a life-changing thing to get this award. And it's supposed to support some of the most brilliant upcoming scientists. So the fact that it's getting reduced is pretty worrying, personally.
And this fellowship can go to people from the United States or outside the United States?
This is only within the U.S.
So, this is only within the United States. So this is just
because it's NSF. NSF is U.S. specific.
Gotcha. So this is directly supporting the careers of new scientists, essentially.
Absolutely. Yeah. And good pointing that out. Like, yeah, this is like kind of forming the base of our scientific structure. If we want really good scientists, we have to fund them from the base up. And so that's getting less and less.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of discussion about, bringing scientists over from overseas to the U.S. and then hoping that they stay here and contribute. But that's not what this is. This is a domestic program.
Yeah. I believe you even have to be a U.S. citizen to get this NSF grant.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right. So thank you for wading through all of the stuff that's out there to identify some of the more significant stuff that might affect not only people in the U.S., but around the world. Appreciate you keeping us up to date on this, Niki.
Yeah. And like I said, I can only cover so many topics. So if there's one that I missed, reach out and let me know your thoughts. And I'm sure I'll have a lot more to talk about next month.
All right. Thanks again. If you want to talk to other folks about this, in fact, Big Jim, the trade nerd, is sometimes in our Discord. Our Discord is a great place to go. You can join the conversation by linking your Patreon account at patreon.com/DTNS.
We end every episode of DTNS with some shared wisdom. Today, Anand Jr. is helping us understand.
Yeah, this is a post on our Patreon episode from yesterday regarding Sean Hollister and I talking about Google Translate. Anand Jr. says, I was at the auto parts store this past weekend, and apparently the guy at the counter was only able to help the customer because of Google Translate. I only caught the tail end, so I don't know what language the customer was a native speaker of. I wonder how my experience on the retail side would have gone if it was today as opposed to 5 or 6 years ago. Of course, part of the problem was I'm not fluent in solfege. Then again, there were other music-specific terms that it struggled with. Interesting to see that out in the wild, not just necessarily because of traveling, although this could have been somebody on vacation, but just in day-to-day use.
Yeah, it's getting there. It's getting there.
Big thanks to Dr. Niki and Anand Jr. for contributing to today's show. Thank you for being along for Daily Tech News Show. It's made possible by our patrons at patreon.com/DTNS. We have a new music headlines show. If you want music news in less than 5 minutes, sign up right now, dailymusicheadlines.com. Talk to you tomorrow.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
All right, ending the recording.